You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
Category 5 Hurricane Melissa still stalling off the coast of Jamaica, but expected to move overnight. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Live tropical weather bulletin for October 28th. Well, Melissa still looking phenomenal right now, although some signs that it may have just slightly passed its peak, still in a formidable Category 5 storm approaching Jamaica at this time, although it has been stalling in the last couple of hours. Elsewhere around the world we have Tropical Storm Mantha, which is currently active, approaching the coast of eastern India. Here's Melissa. Hurricane warnings have been extended now to the southeastern Bahamas, and a hurricane watch in effect for the Turks and Caicos Islands. But of course all eyes are on Jamaica, which still appears like it's going to receive a Category 5 landfall throughout the course of Tuesday. In the eastern Pacific, Sonia is still a tropical storm hanging on in there. Not looking quite so good, but a little pulse of convection still there right now. I think that storm will be on its way out relatively soon, but for the time being it's still with us. In the Western Pacific, chances are slowly starting to build for an area of interest that's going to become more apparent this weekend into next week. 40% chance that we're giving it at this point, and it looks like it may be pivoting a bit further south. We're now pointing it towards the central Philippines and Palau. In the North Indian Ocean, Tropical Storm Mantha has winds of 50 miles per hour right now and is expected to be near that intensity by the time it reaches the coast of India tomorrow. The other system that's still active there as well, we're giving a 30% chance of development. We just do not know whether that thing is going to form or not. In the Southern Indian Ocean, both of those systems that we were looking at previously have now been scrubbed, so there are no systems active at all in the Southwest Indian Ocean or indeed anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere. Take a look at the region and you'll see a few little areas of disturbed weather, but really not too much to talk about at all. A lot of cloud cover along the east coast of Australia there in the South Pacific, but not too much in terms of real tropical thunderstorms or more organised structures. So let's concentrate on the main subject right now, which of course is still this formidable Hurricane Melissa. 175 mile per hour winds we've kept with right now. I'm not sure if the National Hurricane Center will continue with it though, we'll see. Latest pressure estimate 909 millibars, and it is still 176 kilometers from Treasure Beach, Jamaica, still the closest point of land to the storm, which means that the storm hasn't actually gotten any closer to Jamaica in the last 24 to 36 hours, but it will do very soon. 193 from Savannah Lamar, 228 from Montego Bay, and 487 kilometers from Santiago de Cuba. The National Hurricane Center is still predicting this storm to be an extremely powerful Category 5 or near enough by the time it makes landfall in the western part of Jamaica. We're expecting the landfall now to be somewhere near White House. The storm will continue northeastwards down to a Category 3, but maybe still a Category 4 by the time it reaches Cuba, and then a little bit weaker by the time it gets through the Bahamas, and could still head off onto Bermuda. Look at that, over a half chance of storm force winds on the island of Bermuda. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you're always in touch with the latest tropical cyclone updates, as well as following us on social media, and you can also join our Discord server for tropical weather chat at any time on discord.gg/force13. Alright, well, we're back here live on the Tropical Weather Bulletin right now, and first of all, got to apologise for the map there, which was for some reason in slightly the wrong location, even though I remember changing it. I don't know why it still showed the storm due south of Jamaica, when in fact it is here, generally towards the southwest of the island at this point, and still around, as mentioned on that little piece there, 176 kilometres from the closest point of land on Jamaica. Well, this storm of course has been really exceptional so far, and we're here to talk even more about it throughout the course of at least the next hour. And for some reason nothing's loading right now. Anyways, here's some imagery of the storm as we get into nightfall. There we go. There's our bottom bar appearing, and hopefully you'll see me in a second as well. Not that that really matters, but this is Force 13 Live covering Melissa, and it is expected to reach the coast of Jamaica during the course of Tuesday, probably in the morning local time, although question marks now really over the timing when we see that the storm has been stalling in this fashion over the last few hours there. Westward movement, then just a slight dip south, and then just staying in place for a little bit. If weakening has begun, then staying in the same place is not going to be a great thing for Melissa, and we might see a little more weakening. However, when we're talking about weakening, we're only talking about 1 or 2 percentage points so far off that peak intensity that it had earlier on when Recon found a pressure of 906 millibars, and satellite estimates earlier today during that time were suggesting around the 180 mark. My name is Nathan Foy. I'm joined by Maury, JJ, Declan, and Ethan right now. First, I want to cross to Maury because there's been some really beautiful imagery that I wanted us to share tonight from Recon planes over the course of today. I'm sure some of you may have already seen this, but I think it's really incredible, Maury. We actually can't see that right now on the full screen. I don't know if the full screen will work.
Yeah.
But there's some pictures there from how the storm looked earlier on as the Recon plane entered the eye. It doesn't look real, does it? It's really insane looking into the storm like that. And that is probably one of the most impressive stadium effects that even those personnel will see. Such an amazing presence that this storm has had over the course of today. Maury, what have you thought of the storm's structure whilst it's been near its peak?
So I've thought of it as it's been very symmetrical. It's strange now because what I've noticed, there's starting to be it's starting to be a little less symmetrical on the eastern side specifically, which is contrast to what it usually has been, where the west side has been less symmetrical than the east. But either way, this is still a very well-presented storm at the moment. The eye has, of course, broken many records, or one record at least. I think it was the driest eye on record, at least in the Atlantic. And this storm definitely is showcasing a lot of features that are definitely quite exceptional for hurricanes in the Atlantic, especially with that dried out eye and also the stacked layers of the storm in general.
I haven't been quite up to date with the satellite, so I'm just looking at it for the first time in a few hours right now, and I'm actually quite impressed in how the cloud tops have been building back again. So some people might suggest that on satellite appearance it might actually be looking better again. Ethan, you got any thoughts on this right now? I don't know if Ethan's ready for us yet. JJ, you've been looking at the storm regularly throughout the course of today too. Any thoughts you might have on seeing more of that yellow minus 80-degree cloud tops banding around?
I mean, it's reminiscent of last night. I feel like last
Yeah.
night, especially after the end of the stream, we saw those kind of blow up and take over until about the early morning hours of today. And now, as it's stalling out again, you're seeing the same summary thing, those minus 80 starting to pop back into frame. And overall, on the storm's slow crawl throughout the Central Caribbean, it's been putting on a show, at least imagery-wise. It's been very, very intense, very powerful. That tight core has been very robust and has broken a lot of records, and it's going to continue to break some more records despite its slow crawl to Jamaica.
Now, there are 2 planes in the storm right now, Recon planes. One of them we've just received drops on data for. That would be the AF301 mission that just went through the northeast to southwest through the eye. And they have gotten 910 millibars with a 7-knot wind. So that pretty much corroborates once again the 909 millibar estimate that the National Hurricane Center has pushed out with their 8 p.m. update. No changes with the warnings, incidentally, at that advisory. Let's just reiterate what those warnings currently are for everyone here. Hurricane warning for Jamaica, obviously, the Cuban provinces of Granma, Santiago de Cuba, Guantanamo, and Holguin, and southeastern and central Bahamas. A hurricane watch now for the Turks and Caicos Islands, as well as a tropical storm warning, and a tropical storm warning also for Haiti and the Cuban province of Las Tunas. Look at the satellite imagery once again there. The storm moving westerly at first, then just stopping in place almost, and just dipping slightly southwards and maybe just slightly back towards the north again now, but has been very steady. Now, NOAA 2 also passed through the center of the storm very recently. I don't have the drops on for the eye yet, but obviously very similar timings. I think they're going to get very similar data. They did do a drop sonde in the northeastern quad, however, and they got 152 knots when the sonde splashed onto the surface. That would be a gust. But at the high levels, 172 knots at about 70, no, more than that, about 100 meters. So that would be nearly 200 miles per hour gust at the 100 meter mark. So still some very high winds in and around the storm, but looking at the latest Recon data, it does appear as though the maximums that they've been getting at flight level are just slightly less than what they were getting earlier during the middle of today. And that would pretty much support 165 to 175 miles per hour, so anywhere in that area really. I think the National Hurricane Center made a good call with their 8 p.m. advisory. I don't know if they had already got the data by that point or not, because the planes were coming through really at the last minute before that update was pushed, but it's a good call in my opinion. We're ready to take comments and questions as well throughout the course of tonight's stream. If you want to have your say, or if there's any observations that you can make if you're on the ground anywhere near the storm, if it is safe to do so, feel free to send us a message. Let's see, one or two more comments already here. March3258, welcome aboard. Give it a 40 to 50% chance of getting a tiny bit stronger before landfall, but almost certain it's at or near peak right now. I'm pretty much on board with you there with that observation. I think there could be a small chance that the storm does have another push and maybe even eclipse what it's already done briefly. It's still got a fair way before it reaches Jamaica. And how quickly is it going to move? When is it going to start to pick up the pace? And that's leaving people wondering, when will landfall actually be? Because if it's going to be Tuesday morning, the storm's going to have to start to pick up the pace soon, because that's around 15 to 16 hours that the storm would need to get there to pretty much follow the National Hurricane Center's forecast. And at the moment, this is, I think, a 4-hour loop. It won't do it at this rate. Obviously, the storm needs to speed up if it's going to get to Jamaica before the afternoon of Tuesday. So we'll see how that timing ends up. Some more questions here then. Andy says, is there a chance that the storm makes landfall as a Category 5? Well, we're still predicting it, in fact. We are still expecting this storm to be at Category 5 status when it does make landfall. And on the other side of the coin there, another question, True North, could Melissa miss Jamaica? Well, I'll tell you that one GEFS ensemble has the storm just clipping the western tip of Jamaica and not actually making landfall. That's the best you're going to get. There'll still be hurricane force winds on land if that happens, but one ensemble out of, I think, 20 some other ones that are in there, that's a small chance out of that. So it's still looking as though there's going to be a full-on landfall, and at the minute all the data and information that we're getting is suggesting that the most likely landfall location will be near White House, I believe, which is along the western side. Yeah, or maybe just a little bit to the northwest of there, somewhere between Black River and Savannah Lamar, the most likely area for landfall. Declan, you're also with us right now. Your observations on Melissa throughout the course of today did the Recon, in your opinion, find the storm when it was at its peak?
Yeah, I think the NAC has done spot on with this system. 175 miles an hour and 906 millibars at peak. I do think it it could have been a little bit stronger, maybe 180, but I say 175 is the is was a good call. And the CDO as well for this system was impressive earlier on. I think it has leveled off a bit, but it's still a pretty impressive and historic storm in my opinion, because Jamaica has not seen a storm like this pretty much ever, and it's going to make a Cat 5. Well, if it doesn't go through an War replacement cycle, it should make a Cat 5 landfall in Jamaica.
Well, speaking of the CDO, there was a question about what is up with the central dense overcast seemingly outpacing everything else. Winds and eyes seem to be weakening, but in recent frames, it is looking stronger. You're right. But we had this puzzle happen to us last night when we saw the storm's satellite appearance go absolutely crazy, and most of the weather community went absolutely crazy when they saw that the satellite estimates were supporting over 190 mile per hour winds. And yet, at that time, Recon was still only finding winds of around 145 miles per hour, which is going to go down as one of the biggest discrepancies between Recon direct observations and satellite that we've ever seen.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, last night, it was blowing up the minus 80-degree cloud tops. It's doing that again tonight.
Yeah, it
so,
is.
Yep.
Could it actually make a run for another intensification phase? We don't know, but for sure, it is looking very impressive on water vapor and satellite right now.
It is looking very impressive, but yet Recon haven't found the storm to be any stronger. And it's probably at least as strong on satellite as it was when they got their peak readings. No, AF301 are going to be swinging around the southern side of the main part of the storm right now. We'll wait and see what they do next. I imagine it's going to be a southeast to northwest pass coming up next. NOAA 2 are right behind them as well. They're pretty much following each other at the moment. NOAA 2, I don't know where they'll go next. Maybe they'll turn north and do northwest to southeast, perhaps. So we'll see what they end up doing. But 2 planes around the storm at this point, which is good news that we've got plenty of observations to be digesting over the course of tonight's update. Let's see what else we've got at this point. That was... Oh, yes. Why do we think Melissa is plateauing for now? It's in optimal conditions for further strengthening, and it's looking better on satellite, but if anything, it's weakening. That is the enigma that is Melissa, and it's been funny with us for its whole life. Its refusal to strengthen at the beginning when it had those conditions, then it did, and then it had such an amazing appearance despite not being a category 5, and then it did become a category 5, and ever since it was a category 4 for the first time. Satellite estimates have been well ahead of what Recon have been finding. It's gotten a little bit more equal now, but there is still a bit of a gap. As to the question, though, it is optimal conditions. The storm is stalling, so I think if it does get moving a little bit more, it might have a bit more luck. I think it's just more and more energy is required when storms get stronger and stronger to maintain themselves. So it's never a given that it's going to maintain 175 miles per hour or strengthen further. So a lot of energy required, and it's not going to be land interaction yet, that's for sure. Not seeing anything there. I think there might be a little wind shear actually still in the area. Western side still might just be struggling just a little bit. I've noticed that the southern side has always been a little bit weaker than the northern side. It's not been fully equal, but that's pretty normal. I think if anything it might just be a tiny bit of wind shear that's been just keeping it from its maximum potential there. When you look at that western side and the southern side of the big blob of convection that's surrounding the eye, it gets shredded off very suddenly along the edges there. The reds trickle down to the greens and the blues very quickly, and that is a sign of wind shear in the area potentially. Let's see what we've got right now. Any other comments, I should say. It seems to be a very patient storm, and it isn't rushing ahead. Bomb rushing ahead, is that a phrase? It isn't flying too close to the sun, it seems. And apparently, according to Andrew, definitely a great case study in the future once all the data has been processed to help future forecasting. NHC in their post and that's going to be really interesting.
It will be.
When we're talking about the scientific perspective, but from the human perspective, we are still looking at an extremely powerful and deadly impact from this storm, with a storm surge of up to, what are they saying now? I think they were talking about 9 to 13 feet for Jamaica along just to the east of where the center of Melissa makes landfall, and on the northwest coast near Montego Bay they're expecting 1 to 3 feet of storm surge above ground level. And don't forget Cuba. Peak storm surge heights could reach 7 to 11 feet there as well, near and to the east of where the center of Melissa makes landfall, and a storm surge of 4 to 6 feet currently being projected above normally dry ground for the southeastern Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands on Wednesday. Just to talk about the rainfall factor 2, which is a massive thing here for Jamaica. Serious issues with flooding, landslides, flash flooding when the heavy rain bands are moving in. So we're expecting rainfall of 15 to 30 inches for portions of Jamaica, an additional rainfall of 6 to 12 inches for southern Hispaniola through Wednesday, storm total local maxima of 40 inches possible, catastrophic flash flooding, numerous landslides likely. For eastern Cuba, storm total rainfall of 10 to 20 inches with local amounts to 25 expected by Monday into Wednesday, resulting in life-threatening, potentially catastrophic flash flooding. Southeast Bahamas, total rainfall of 5 to 10 inches expected Tuesday into Wednesday, resulting in areas of flash flooding there as well. So that is pretty much everything about the potential impacts, but obviously it's really going to be starting to be felt in the morning hours, and I suppose one potentially better thing about this is that if the storm continues in this way, it's not going to be a nighttime landfall. It'll be striking when you can actually see what's going on during daylight hours potentially tomorrow. So I suppose that might be just a little something, but obviously western Jamaica, we're looking at really catastrophic conditions here with those very powerful winds, probably category 5 strength. I don't know if any of our team have any other info right now that you want to share with us, but go right ahead if you do. Just seeing what you guys are looking at on your screens there as well. But actually, let's go to Maury, because I only get to tell you about the recon data, but Maury can actually show you the recon data. That there is Noah 2, I think.
Yeah, and I think we did just get another update from the other recon. Let me just check. Yeah, they're still straddling the south side of the storm.
Yep. So I think they're going to go southeast to northwest on their next pass, but we're not going to get any other big recon data here until near the end of the hour. But again, such a powerful storm here. What do you think, Maury? Do you think it could have a shot of slight bit more intensification?
Well, I would have to look at the sea surface temperatures around it,
Well, they're
and I
very
mean,
good. 30 to 31 degrees.
I've heard that they're pretty good, but I haven't looked at them in a while. So let me just look at those specific sea surface temperatures ahead of the storm.
I mean, look at this. Hold on. This image from the Force 13 website again. Latest frame there. It has wrapped up that minus 80 degree cloud top all the way around the eye again.
Yep.
It did do that last night.
Yep.
And it was the same situation. Like, it didn't really mean much when it came to the recon data. So, I mean, it is having that ring, but like, I feel like unless if it's completely symmetrical, it doesn't really showcase the full strength.
It does feel like the symmetry's, I don't know, just gone a little bit compared to last night, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely.
It's a little weird.
And I mean, even though the symmetry is gone, the core is still very much so intact. Those tight rings, those are very, very evident within those minus 80 cloud tops. So it's not like much as, being hidden. It's still a very impressive look. If anything, the only thing it's doing is really deceiving.
Yeah, in one way or another. Another comment here. Do we think the upwelling is affecting the storm? They looked at the OHC map for today, and the area right where the storm is has little heat content. That's not actually true. The area where the storm is right now is pretty high on oceanic heat content. The gap is where Melissa was yesterday. That's where it's gone pretty low now. But where the storm currently is, oceanic heat content is good. And sea surface temperatures, I think, are approaching 31 degrees Celsius at least. So, no, it's not an issue with anything to do with the oceanic energy supply.
I think like you touched on earlier, a lot of this might have to do with shear. We saw that last night where there was some shear on the western side of the storm. And it's kind of been there throughout the whole life of the storm. It's had that western shear element, but thanks to its very tight core, it's been able to keep that intact. It's very hard to break down storms, especially with this strength with the core so tight. So we've been able to see it not only sustain its intensity, but also go on to intensify to some incredible peaks. We saw 175 earlier, 906 millibars, and it's going to be tough to break down a storm like this. I think with that northern, if the storm continues to stall, especially in this position, for another 6 to 8 hours, which is probably not going to happen. Probably going to be put for about 2, maybe 3 more hours tops before it gets into that northward element. That upwelling is eventually going to catch up to the storm, and we could eventually see some gradual weakening. Not enough to affect the landfall intensity, but enough to knock down the storm. Let's say off of its peak right now, let's see it's still at 175, drop it down to maybe 165, 160.
I must say this imagery is so mesmerizing to watch. And if we look what happened earlier, the eye went a bit unstable for a time, and there were question marks about whether, could this be an eye wall replacement cycle? Could this stage of the eye be capitulating, well, it looks like it's rebounded back in those later frames. Just incredible to just keep watching that, just wobbling around, and how little the storm's actually moved over that amount of time as well. Let's bring another variation of this imagery. I think it's this one. Water vapor. And a different way, probably not a usual way of looking at the storm, it's just like a little light in the center there. That, of course, is the very dry eye, and all that blue around it is just the enormous moisture that is contained in that eye wall. And it certainly looks like the field of moisture has actually increased quite substantially in those last few hours there, which is interesting because that sort of goes against the shear story.
It does. Honestly, Melissa has been a pain. Honestly, trying to figure out what it's doing this entire time has been a head scratcher and a half. So
yeah, Recon due there again fairly soon. They're going around the southern side of the storm right now. If you've just joined us, this storm, Hurricane Melissa, winds of 175 miles per hour sustained still at this point, and a pressure estimate near 909 millibars. An extremely powerful storm, one of the strongest to occur in the Caribbean, certainly at this time of year. To be honest, intensity-wise, if you look at just the numbers, it's pretty comparable to Hurricane Mitch, which was peaking just a couple of days ago in a similar area, just out towards the west. And that forecast track there calling for the storm to pass through western Jamaica and then on to Cuba, somewhere near Santiago de Cuba, maybe a little west of there now, and then on through the southeastern and central Bahamas. And I think that part of the cone up there has shifted a little bit westwards bit by bit over the last few advisories. Then off it goes by Thursday, still a hurricane as it continues to move away, and next in its sights could possibly be Bermuda. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll take a look at models in a second as well, but let's go to some questions right now. People talking about the M curse. Oh dear. Would the tsunami warning from the earthquake in Guadeloupe affect storm surge? I would have thought not, because I don't think it's going to be... I've not been keeping massively up to date on that. There was an earthquake earlier, by the way, if people didn't know that, around a magnitude 6. It was a 6.0 that occurred at around 8 a.m., 9 a.m. local time. Some distance away from Guadeloupe, 100 miles.
There was a 6.5. I think the 6.0 was an aftershock.
Depends which source you use. USGS saying a 6. Oh yeah, there was a 6.5 as well. Pardon me.
Yeah,
a little bit earlier.
they were
Then the
about
6.0
at the same
aftershock,
time.
and then a few other ones too. 100 miles east of Guadeloupe, and I wouldn't really think a tsunami would be forthcoming for Jamaica or any of these areas, to be honest.
No.
I would say negligible. Will Melissa get more stronger? Excellent grammar there. I don't think... my guess right now would be no, but there is still a chance that it could actually push one more time, because it's only going to have one more chance at any further strengthening. Is an eyewall replacement cycle occurring right now? Well, Recon, of course, went in, and their data really suggests that there is, once again, no real sign of an eyewall replacement cycle at all. So, no eyewall replacement cycle. And How strong do we think Melissa was at peak? Does anyone here think that Melissa was stronger than the National Hurricane Center official peak?
That's a good question.
Nepal?
I think there's a chance.
I personally don't, but I I think the main thing that would probably determine if the storm was greater than what the NHC forecast was, uh, would be, I guess, maybe like looking at those cloud tops and the symmetricalness of the symmetry of the storm at that specific moment. Of course, it doesn't all have to do with symmetry. I think also maybe the CDO values. It, would you say the CDO values are like trustworthy when it comes to like putting them against Recon? Like, what's more trustworthy? I would say Recon, yeah, but like, how does it compare? Like, is it like half as trustworthy? Like, what would you say?
I don't know. The recon data, is it very important? Sometimes we have to make inferences between recon passes if the storm has looked better on satellite in between all of that time. But recon have been going in at pretty good intervals, so I'm quite happy with what they found, to be honest. So I'm pretty much on board almost exactly with the National Hurricane Center peak. I think maybe there's a possibility it could be knocked down a millibar in pressure, so I think I would expect that peak would be 175, 905. I don't subscribe to the satellite bandwagon where everyone's been going crazy in the last 24 hours. Oh my gosh, satellites are indicating 200 miles per hour raw. It doesn't work that way. Would be nice if it did, because then we wouldn't need to send planes in. But that's why we still have to take all the direct measurements, and it's such a weird one. Usually, satellite doesn't do us wrong very much when giving us decent estimates of how strong a storm is, but on this occasion it really has, and it's got to bring up question marks about are there any other cases in the past that have had potentially had this issue, and how do we explain this issue? Why was Melissa's wind speeds from Recon so much lower than what satellite was indicating, so much more than any other storm that we've seen?
I would say it is a predicament, but I think with this storm, it's very interesting because it's one of those cases where like the satellite appearance is different from their recon, and I'm unsure if we could like do more research into that or something.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversations to be had after this storm is gone.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I guess we just got to go with what we're seeing in real time and think about it all later. I'm sure people who are not having to track the storm and do updates and all that will have time to take a look at it straight away, but certainly for me at the time being, I won't be looking at how we've arrived at this point, just what's coming up next. And that, I'm afraid, is a major landfall coming up for Jamaica. Unfortunately, the storm, whether it's stalling, that's not going to make much of a difference as to how strong the storm will be when it gets there. It could even work against the western coast of Jamaica if the storm actually uses that time to strengthen again. No sign of it yet, but satellite looking very gnarly indeed.
When is it not, though?
When is it not, indeed? So, more comments here. Just wondering, is there a possibility that it could potentially miss Jamaica, or at least hit the lesser populated area in Jamaica on the western side, and that they hope it weakens? Well, Kingston's the largest city in Jamaica. Not to play down any other areas, but we were very concerned a while ago now that the storm would make landfall pretty much in Kingston. That clearly is not going to happen anymore. So that's the largest city in Jamaica out of play for the worst conditions. They could still get hurricane force winds, and I would still predict that as well. But having 70 or 80 mile per hour winds is certainly much more agreeable than having 160 mile per hour winds striking the largest city in Jamaica. But of course still significant populations out west as well, which will receive those very, very powerful winds. Whether it could miss at all, it's very, very unlikely. Even if it does, it's a miss in name only. Just one ensemble from the GEFS has the storm actually missing, and it takes the storm pretty much due north from where it is right now and just off the coast. But even at this point here, hurricane force winds will extend out probably this far at least. So you're still going to be looking at a fair chunk there that's going to be getting some strong winds, and a much further area beyond that is going to get tropical storm force winds, even if it does take that most westerly of scenarios. Storm certainly is trying to pivot that way, though, that's for sure, because it is still trying to fight to turn northwest on those latest frames, I think. It doesn't know what to do. Whereas if it's going to completely follow that National Hurricane Center forecast, which I can also turn on here, there, yep, I didn't think it was going to stay with us just then. You can even follow along compared to that line. Well, it hasn't decided which way it's going to go yet, but the storm's going to have to turn northeasterly rather than due north. You know, you put that angle there. It's got to go northeasterly if it's going to follow the National Hurricane Center track, and you can see the NHC landfall zone there is there, which is very close to, I think that's still near White House, possibly getting towards Black River. But regardless of that, the actual landfall location, this whole area here is going to get very strong winds, disastrous storm surge up to, I keep forgetting the number they put out, I think 13 feet. And obviously when we're looking more towards the hills in general, all these areas getting very heavy rainfall and serious threat of flash flooding, landslides, and landslides can be particularly dangerous. And that is, of course, the NHC's depiction there of their cone as well. I'm hoping we can get some recon data before we get to the end of the hour. Hopefully they're on their way in. No, they're still not on their way in yet, so I'm actually not sure we're going to get that data before we get to the top of the hour. So we may stay on a little bit longer to get that. For the time being, let me see if we can get some other model data, unless anyone in the Maury or JJ want to stop me for anything.
No, might as well go ahead. I was
Okay.
taking a look earlier and ridiculous.
Oh, ridiculous is the word from JJ there. This can't be good.
All I'm gonna say is H-Worth initialized the storm sub 900.
I'm just trying to get some tidbits keeps going down at the moment, so we're going to get another
Yeah,
source
I
right now.
noticed. I noticed.
Yeah,
that
I
too.
was having the same thing.
Here, wait.
I
think
have
I got it.
H-Worth up, but that's about it.
Oh, you do?
I was trying to get through the things going now. I have
I
H-Worth
think
up
there's a
right
lot
now,
of
actually, at the
traffic
post.
on Tropical Tidbits right now, so.
Well, we have other sources, which is good news. So let's show you another viewpoint of it then. First of all, the HAFS-A is what we're going to look at here. Here it is, the storm initializing at a pressure. Where is the data? Top or bottom? Neither. Okay, that's helpful. It's not actually saying what the highest winds are in this. But there's the initialization. Looks quite impressive to me, but I'm struggling to find out just how strong it is there. Looks really strong there, intensifying. And
Yeah.
it's not going to tell us all the info that we want, but by landfall there, that is still clearly a Category 5, and then some. It could even be a 160 knot colour in there, I just can't tell. It's a shame it doesn't show the actual wind on it. But that looks like a very powerful Category 5, pretty much straight up to landfall. I want to see just how far west it goes. I'm not sure about that, because the initialization and the storm is already further west than at any point on this forecast, so I'm not sure it's going to mean very much, but I'm just saying that the storm still, that the track may just shift a little bit further west still at this point. On the other side, it is still borderline major, Category 2 there for Cuba, and then on it goes through the Bahamas as a category, borderline Category 2 again there, much larger, different structure now after that forced eyewall replacement cycle from all of that land interaction. Where's Bermuda? I don't know if I missed it. I think I may have missed it. Bermuda was somewhere along here. I could never find that damn island. It's somewhere around there. They'll may have received tropical storm force winds, unless it just didn't go near Bermuda. I just never saw it there. That's the HAFS-A. Let's try and get to the HAFS-B. This is the EMC website, by the way, if anyone's familiar with that one.
I think I was able to get like the millibar values and stuff on Tropical Tidbits. It's a little slow, but I think I got it.
Oh, that animation isn't available yet.
Yeah.
HAFS-B.
I'm trying to pull it all up.
We'll just have to go with the raw data there. Okay, well that's really odd. They have the storm weakening for a bit first and then re-strengthening just before making landfall in Jamaica and getting to 180 miles per hour at landfall. Of course, it initializes the storm at 190 miles per hour, so I think the whole forecast might be a dud there. Look towards the end, though. 72 to 84 hours, that would be when it's reaching Bermuda. It actually goes back to Category 3 again briefly. So that's concerning. Just before it reaches Bermuda by the looks of things, or high in Category 2 once it passes there. Wow. So still, this storm could try and re-strengthen again when it gets out of there. Legacy HWRF, which of course we've been looking at as well on other sites. Let's see if we can have a little look. This one actually does show the live data, but it's broken. It's broken, so that actually doesn't work. But we can take a look at what it does. The HWRF there, track-wise, trying to make out exactly where it hits there. It's right along the, I think it's near the western tip. Yep. And then continues on through quite far west again, I think, there for Cuba. Just can't make out those outlines very well. And that is actually a Category 3 landfall there for Cuba. Continuing on, Category 3 briefly again through the southeastern Bahamas, and then on towards Bermuda, which again I've not got a hope of seeing on this map. It'll probably be a Category 1 by the time it passes Bermuda on the HWRF. The Legacy HMON, let's have a look at that one now.
I actually have that one up right now.
Oh, you have that one?
On Tidbits, each one.
Oh, yep, okay, let's have a look at that.
It's the only one I managed to get up.
Now that one really hits Bermuda, look. But yeah, let's start at the beginning. I should point out you're looking at the 850 millibar height there. So it's not going to be surface level winds.
already.
But
Well, initialize the storm obviously at
you may have just
897.
committed an error there because you might not get that graphic back. Okay, well,
It's fine.
we
I
get
saw it. I saw it.
the idea with it though. Yeah, HMON I'm not having working for me here anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll just go back to. I mean, not much is going to be changing with these model runs. It's either going to strengthen a little bit more again before landfall, or it isn't. But at this moment in time, it does look as though the storm, on direct observations from recon planes, may be weakening just a slight bit, but not by very much. Still estimating 175 mile per hour winds and a pressure estimate of 909 millibars, which is still extremely impressive. Let's see if there's any more recon data. They may be turning back in to the eye wall now, but I'm not sure how long that will take before we get the AF301 have just started moving back in towards the northwest from the southeastern quadrant, so we're going to get another eye pass in about 15 minutes time, maybe a little bit more than that. We will stay on to cover what they find in there, and then we'll probably finish up with our bulletin, and then we'll have much more regular coverage, I think, tomorrow for the landfall. But also we'll be redirecting over to our automated stream once we're finished here, showing a live look at the storm throughout the night tonight. Good time to send in your comments and questions at this point. Is the eye expanding? You might have thought so earlier when the eye had a wobble, and then it looked like it was getting a little bit bigger. Let's zoom right in here and have a good look. It is staying pretty constant. I'm not sure it's expanding. Maybe it is just a tad. Latest
I think
eye
it grew slightly.
diameter there, 15 miles on satellite.
I think it shrunk a little on the wobble and it just kind of expanded just a bit.
Yeah. And would Melissa beat Alan's record of strongest hurricane in the Atlantic by miles per hour in the night or early in the morning? I would say the answer is no. And an interesting story about Alan is that whilst it was 190 miles per hour, not many people know this, operationally they gave it a peak at the time of 195 miles per hour in their advisories, and later on they nudged it back down. So quite incredible what Alan did, but 190 is its final intensity. And what would this rank on the Dvorak scale? I think last time I looked at ADT and looking at what the agencies were saying, it was around 7.5. According to Sims, at this point it still ranks at, oh my gosh, it's 8.0. Still on the Sims ADT, which means it's, according to satellite alone, 195 miles per hour, but it isn't. And raw T numbers are maxing out again up to 8.3. We are in the same position as we were last night. We really are, aren't we, JJ? Because that's what it peaked at last night, wasn't it? Or did it go even higher?
I believe it is right by where it was last night.
Yeah, I think so.
Honestly, I'm not too sure. I mean, obviously, it's kind of matched the look visually, of course.
Oh, latest
I was
frame's
just
getting even better here on visible, and
yeah, I was about to point that out to you. Those cloud tops have really. It seems like it likes to do those nighttime performances now, where those City cloud tops, they love to wrap all the way around. It's really, really getting in there, really putting on a show. But honestly, it's honestly hard to say whether or not it looks better than it did last night.
Wow, looks
almost
so
identical.
Impressive. Looks even better on the RAM imagery, if I'm being honest. The color scales are just
Yeah.
slightly different, showing even more yellow than what the Force 13 imagery is showing. But I'm just going to try and get a read here on the eye temperature, which did fall a little bit earlier, down to 19 degrees Celsius. And I gotta tell you, it actually has decreased.
Again.
Just a tad. It looks like it's going to be about 18 or 19 degrees now. So the eye's not quite as warm as it was earlier, but those cloud tops probably more than compensating. You also may be forgiven for thinking, I had to check myself, whether it just maybe moved a bit east at the end there. I don't think it has. This floater moves, so it can be a bit of an optical illusion that the storm may have actually moved a little bit east, but I think it has actually stayed in exactly... Hold on, let's have a proper look at this. And let me draw a line. Let's slow this right down. So, it starts here at the very beginning. How much has it moved since then? So when it was really going through that little wobble, it got to that point there. Since then, it really hasn't done very much. It sort of went around there and is then there. What happened since then? Okay, just a tiny bit. Really right in the same place. Those 4 dots representative of its movement in the last 4 hours right there.
It really hasn't made much of a movement anywhere.
What distance is that?
That's about 3-4 miles.
6 miles. 6 miles in 4 hours, guys. That's how slowly the storm is moving at the moment. And okay, I grant you, it is moving east at probably about 0.5 miles an hour, if that.
I will say there has been a lot of Dorian comparisons for the storm, and the one thing I will give, this storm is making that same slow, stubborn motion.
Yeah, it is, and thankfully a little bit. Obviously, the storm's still going to be hitting Jamaica, but at least it isn't stalling like this over there, as Dorian did over the northern Bahamas. Some places received 48 hours or more of major hurricane force winds.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Another comment there. The ping didn't work for some reason, but I saw your comment, Blue Guy. Melissa's satellite presentation is incredible. Has the driest eye of any tropical cyclone. I still need to verify that. I've not had the chance. An extremely warm eye. Why do we think that the pressure isn't in the 890s or even 880s? It's a head scratcher, isn't it? Because satellite estimates clearly putting it into that bracket. Reality, well, not unfortunately, I mean, it's a good thing. Reality, though, frustratingly, for people who want answers, isn't agreeing. So we're having to try and piece together why that discrepancy is there, and to be honest, I don't really have an answer for you personally. I don't know if more sophisticated people in the scientific community have better answers or an answer, but I don't really know what the reason is for this one.
Baffling. I mean, just to say satellite wants it, it's been wanting it since the storm was a Cat 4. Models have wanted it. They've been drooling over the idea of it, and it's not like the storm hasn't looked the part. Just honestly, one of the most baffling storms to ever tracked. I mean, it's still one of the most impressive storms of all time in terms of visually and in terms of cloud tops, and it still has an intensity that is going to go down in the record books. But to think it is not smashing those records,
Yeah.
like what it looks like, what it does, and what the models want it to do, and what satellite wants it to do is
I
beyond. It's
just
beyond me.
I just wonder whether maybe some of it might be down to its size. It is still a small hurricane.
It's true.
Like,
But
I
usually you
think
see
Wilma must have been bigger, right? Even though it had
yeah.
the tiny pinhole. And all other storms of this strength in the Atlantic were bigger. Um, I just wonder if it might be something to do with that.
I mean, some possibility. I think it would be the reverse if anything. A lot of times you see the smaller storms, the tighter cores, those winds they start to pick up a little bit stronger, especially because there's a
Yeah.
very smaller core. So those winds are able to pick up a lot faster and sustain themselves a lot better. I mean, you saw that with storms like Irma coming through the Lesser Antilles. That very tight core managed to sustain itself with winds of 180 miles an hour.
Now, I don't
So
know a massive amount about physics, but, we're talking about such a tight wind pressure gradient. This storm has a really tight pressure gradient. It may just not be physically possible to have winds stronger than what we're currently getting, or a pressure lower than what we're currently getting without the storm having to be bigger than it is. I just don't
maybe
know.
maybe that's a benefit of the storm not having an hour replacement cycle.
Well,
Maybe obviously the hour replacement cycle would bring down those winds temporarily, but eventually the storm would complete the cycle, broaden in size, and I think especially with these conditions, it would have had an even more phenomenal second peak. So I mean, thankfully we haven't seen that yet, and hopefully for the wee hours of tonight, we don't see that, as that would honestly just expedite impacts for Jamaica. But aside from that, this might be the limit to how
I don't know.
strong a storm of this size could get this
Just
time of year.
just speculation. I don't know. How strong? Sorry. Is there any slight non-zero possibility that it could head west and hit Central America? I think the chance is zero. I have not seen any model ensemble doing anything like that. So I think it's not going to happen. The most west it's probably going to go is maybe 50 miles west of Jamaica, for being really open-minded about this. It does interest me to see that the storm currently is, you draw a line north, it is west of Jamaica technically at the minute. If it did go straight due north, it would miss. I say miss, but it would still give hurricane force winds to this whole area. But that's where this northeastward movement is going to come in somewhere along the line. We expect it to happen. Landfall through there instead. Off it goes northeastwards. Montego Bay may still get the eye of this storm as well, which is going to be seriously uncomfortable, I would imagine, for that area. NOAA 2 are also making for the eye right now, moving in from the south-southeast, almost due south. We should get data from them in about 20 minutes time. We will stay for both of these two passes that are occurring at this point. AF301 are even closer. We should be getting information from them in the next 5 minutes, hopefully. We should have some more interesting data to bring to you, so stay tuned. 175 mile per hour winds, pressure 909 millibars is the latest estimate, which was also based on that Recon data. It looks like the storm did peak earlier on with a pressure somewhere near 905 millibars and winds still of 175. And, well, satellite appearance looking phenomenal once again, with those minus 80s wrapping all the way round. Will that continue? Eye temperature not quite as high as it was last night, but still pushing close to 19 degrees Celsius. Let's see if we've got any more comments or questions whilst we're waiting. Do we know what current rainfall amounts are? I will see if I can let you know any of that. Is the eye cooling? Possibly because the eye expanding, making the temperature spread out a bit. Not exactly too knowledgeable and stuff like that, though. It could be. Sometimes when we look at down from the satellite, sometimes cloud cover can reduce that temperature a little bit as well if we get a little bit more wispy low-level clouds entering the eye. At one point last night it was looking extremely clear, so it did not surprise me that we were getting those temperatures increasing. How much do we think it will intensify? Well, will it intensify? That's number one question. And then after that, how much? If some models have their way, it still could go for another 10 miles per hour than what it already has on it at the minute. Waiting for that important recon data, which shouldn't be too far away. We'll let you know whenever that arrives. Whilst we wait for that, then we may as well go through the models, or the GFS I should say, for the next 16 days. Hopefully it lets me do that. Well, we'll get to take a look around the whole world about what to expect in the next 16 days or so, where there's any crazy things going on in the long range, where there's any other systems to be watching out for in all of the basins that we're tracking. I'm already seeing a notable shift on the 18Z GFS. So as soon as it all loads in, I will show it all to you. But right now we're just still looking at that satellite imagery. Let's show you a few more views. Here is this shot, which of course is, I would say, very daunting from a Jamaican perspective. Is this reminiscent of Super Typhoon Rolly, or international name Goni, the storm, one of the most strongest storms we've tracked, which occurred at this time of year back in 2020 and hit the Philippines as a most powerful Category 5 storm. It does have some comparisons. It's hard to say. It does have some comparisons. When you look at its structure, it's very impressive, but we still, and that's the thing, but no planes went into Goni, so do we actually think it was? Do we actually know that it was as strong as what we think it was, which 190 miles per hour plus? If there were no planes in Melissa, we would go with numbers approaching that as well. But yeah, lots of questions about whether we think it can intensify more. That is still very much up in the air. All right,
It's
still
on the table, but
yep.
I was saying, it's still on the table, but I think that for now the storm has definitely plateaued. I think the storm has is starting to approach that window where you're starting to see the wind, especially with a lot of Category 5s in the Atlantic. They reach their peak intensity, and a lot of them tend to plateau and sustain that intensity for a period of time, especially a storm like Melissa. I think that while conditions are there for the storm to continue to intensify, it takes a lot for a storm to maintain an intensity, especially one of this magnitude. And I think that for now, like you said earlier, I think the storm has reached its peak. Is there a secondary peak on the table? Absolutely. But I think it's safer to say that the storm is going to, especially with its stall motion, begin on a weakening trend on approach to Jamaica.
Yeah. I don't actually have any rain data for for rain that's actually been observed, unfortunately. But at Kingston, the airport, the maximum wind today has been a 44 mile per hour gust and sustained winds of 32 miles per hour. Of course, quite far away from the storm now, although the pressure is dropping to new lows. It is currently around 1003 millibars. just get some data from Montego Bay as well, briefly. Did they have rain data? I don't think so. Their pressure right now is 1001 millibars. Earlier they got a gust of 41 miles per hour and sustained winds of 26 so far at Montego Bay Airport. Recon are on the way in right now. Still don't have a large amount of data yet. 2 planes moving right in there. They're already in hurricane force wind zone, but they're not into the maximum area yet, which gives us time to take a look at what we're expecting, or what the GFS is expecting over the next 16 days. Well, first of all, we're looking at where GFS has put Melissa. Obviously, as usual, starting it out poorly with the estimated winds, according to it, of 97 miles per hour, which is not true. So a slight movement still westwards there on that forecast just for the next hour or two, and then it does pretty much move due north until just before landfall, when it does tilt east. And then there it is. Landfall just east of Savannah Lamar. Probably moves over Montego Bay, or part of it, and then it continues on, probably still a major hurricane landfall in southern Cuba, and continues on, still a major hurricane possibly for the southeastern Bahamas, or high-end Cat 2. Where's it go next? Bermuda is somewhere there. Hold on, let's just retreat. Bermuda is there under tropical storm force winds, very close to the center of the storm actually. Hurricane force winds by that point are all on the southeastern side. Does it even get hurricane force winds? It's a close one, with those winds being all on that side. But Bermuda gets the storm, absolutely. Turns post-tropical, merges with an enormous extratropical cyclone now, which is a different thing to what we were seeing in other runs. And Melissa leads the charge towards Western Europe as a windstorm. Elsewhere, there are now 1 or 2 signs that I would say quite hopeful of maybe a little system forming here. Look, this system was showing signs of potential subtropical characteristics in the forecast, but this is 4 or 5 days out, and I think is going to be too shallow. We're not marking it yet. GFS, I think, is also holding on to another system forming very close to where Melissa first formed, around the 3rd or 4th of November. There it goes. Tropical storm. Oh, look, it's going to hit Jamaica. Oh, that's just wonderful. Oh dear, what is going on here now? This is me seeing this for the first time. Tropical storm hitting Jamaica, becomes a hurricane for the Cayman Islands, and strengthens further to reach the Yucatan via Cozumel, and further as a hurricane, doesn't get to major, and then it weakens, still a tropical storm, through the Bend region of Florida, and becomes a very enormous post-tropical cyclone there up the eastern seaboard of the United States on the 10th and 11th of November. That's quite far out. JJ, your thoughts on that?
Excuse me?
Excuse me, yes, exactly.
Very odd. I know that the GFS throughout a few days ago was throwing up signals or something in the Western Caribbean, but I believe it was a lot further towards the Yucatan. Now we're seeing you know what? This is the silly range for a reason. Don't believe everything you see.
Yep, that is Fantasyland, so we will just look at that and move on. There's Sonia, what's left of it. Still a tropical storm, not much left for it now, and no other systems in that 16-day period for the Eastern Pacific. Westpac, we are looking to be drawing our attention towards this potential system. Oh, big change there. A couple of days ago, GFS had this system being a category 5, basically, in a similar area. Now, in this particular run, only going for a tropical storm peak, and then into the coast of Samar, and very little left of it after that. But what happens behind it, getting into the long range though at this point, but let's just have a look. System trying to develop, it does just about manage it. Big tropical storm reaches the Philippines, dies off, shrivels up very quickly. So no typhoons there, but 2 tropical storms. That would be number 31 and 32 on the JTWC's numbering list, at least. It has been a busy season in the end in the Western Pacific. We have another tropical storm active, by the way, not just Melissa. It's this one, Cyclone Mantha, in the Bay of Bengal in the Indian Ocean, just off the coast of eastern India there, and making landfall in the Andhra Pradesh region. A large tropical storm, currently with winds near 50 miles per hour, and we expect landfall will be a little bit less than that, but still quite close to it. Nothing else happens with that. The other system, we've been tracking this one for about 2 weeks now, it feels like anyway, and it still can't decide whether it wants to form or not, and still very inconclusive on that model run. 30% is what we're giving it. A very brief spin-up after that, around the 4th and 5th of November in the Bay of Bengal as well. A brief tropical storm that dies off before it even reaches land. And then later on, nothing at all. So, Southern Hemisphere now, I don't think there's going to be anything here, is there? Long range, a storm tries to form and does succeed, but that is very long range, 12th of November. Obviously not affecting any land. Australia still calm. And the Southern Pacific also calm. Those who are not familiar with these areas, around about now is when it's going to start to rev up over there in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's why we're looking a little bit more to that area too. Total precipitation in that 7-day period. This is now the projection. Don't forget, this will be on top of any rainfall that's already been seen. 16 inches. We're looking at there for a few spots there in Jamaica, western half of the island, 16 additional inches, that's 400 millimeters, and for part of southern Cuba, getting up towards that 400 millimeters as well, maybe 12 inches for parts of the Bahamas, 300 millimeters, and for Bermuda, somewhere up here, if the rainiest part of the storm passes over you, it could get up towards 10 inches, that's me drawing, or 250 millimeters. So that's the latest with the GFS model right now. Let's go back to the latest satellite imagery as we try and piece together what's going on with Recon. 2 planes getting in there right now, and we should have some information on that shortly, if not already. But I'm just trying to get the satellite back working first. Hello, anyone home? The satellite is no longer working. We'll throw us back to this viewpoint. Still looking so impressive on that satellite imagery. Yes, AF301 have just gotten through the center, and they have gotten a much stronger pressure, much deeper pressure, extrapolated 902.8. So this storm is now much deeper than what it was just an hour or two ago. The other plane has also just gotten through to hopefully corroborate that info, and they've got 909.2. Oh, that's a big discrepancy. I am not sure what to think of that. 2 planes going through the center of the storm at near enough exactly the same time, just a minute or two apart, and getting pressure estimates extrapolated 8 millibars apart. I'm quite baffled by even that. What's going on there?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, AF301 just went through with an extrapolated 902.8, and NOAA 2 also going right through there about a minute before and getting 909.2. Let me just assess what altitude they were both flying at. So the NOAA plane was flying at 2100 meters, and the AF301 was flying higher at 3200 meters, so I'm more inclined to believe the lower plane, which is the higher pressure. But still very interesting to see such a discrepancy there at the same moment in time. hopefully they'll both be dropping dropsons so that we'll actually get a more accurate number when we get that data. But that is certainly a really interesting development. I think we've already got drop data actually. Already got drop data from NOAA 2, 907 millibars at 6 knots. So looks like it's going to be 906 millibars again, looking at that dropson data. And they got winds up again to about 160 knots.
What?
Yep, around a 160 knot wind on the south-southeast of the eye wall. So it appears to me as though this storm has been strengthening a little bit whilst we've been talking on this live stream, basically. And a conundrum for the National Hurricane Center is what they're going to do next. I think they'll go for 175.906 is what I do, at least.
Yeah.
Pending other data that we might later receive, because we haven't yet got AF301 going through the northwestern side, but I think that won't matter. It's the southeastern that's probably got the higher winds. So yep, I think it's going to still be 175.906. It's still not that much different to what it was earlier, but really interesting to see what happened with those two Recon planes. But also, let's see if we can see if there's any drops on data from AF301. Still waiting for that data to drop. But far as I can tell with that data, despite that 902.6 extrapolated, I think we're going to be looking around 906 millibars at this point, which will tie the previous intense pressure that Recon got earlier today. So, well, people saying in the chat that they have enough for 180, but I don't think they'll go for it because it's the same winds that they got earlier. So if they didn't do it earlier, I don't see why they would do it now. And I'm not sure it would correspond to 180 anyway.
No. Unless we'll have to see what happens when they get in the northern quadrant, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to matter.
Yeah, well, that's southeast as well. I mean, it's not northeast, so
That's southeast fine. It's when you look at it on imagery, it's held consistent, it's held firm. So I'm not surprised that they're seeing the strongest winds coming out of there. I mean, I'm
very
scratching my head more and more.
This seems to be a theme, doesn't it?
You think the storm has peaked, proven wrong. You think the storm is stronger than what it is, proven wrong. No matter what you think about Melissa, chances are you're wrong. This storm is out here to break records and confuse you one day at a time.
Fishing Addict NE, thank you very much for your support tonight. Really appreciate it. Hope you've been enjoying our stream as much as it can be possible with such a serious stream as this. We did have quite a few other questions in there as well, but we're just trying to digest this data right now. But I'm more inclined to believe hold on, we're still. Let's just see if we get Recon dropson data from AF301, because that's going to be important too. But from the dropson that we got from NOAA 2, 907 millibars at, I think, a 6 knot wind or something like that, suggests to me that we're looking at 906 millibars, which is similar to what it was earlier on. The wind speeds that they were getting, 160 knot flight level winds, which on the ground would correspond to somewhere around what the storm is currently doing right now. I would say that would be 175 miles per hour, around 906 millibars. I don't know if the National Hurricane Center will do an update statement. So far they haven't. I don't really see the need to, because no real change in that intensity, just that it got the adrenaline going for a second there, I think, as we got all of that data bouncing in. NOAA 2 also went north-northwest afterwards as well, and just for the record there, they got 150, maybe 155 knot winds on that north-northwestern, no, 150 on the north-northwestern side. Wow, that was a big flurry of activity there in the last few minutes. JJ, have you managed to make any sense of that?
Nope.
Nope. Hold on a sec. Nope, we've not got the data just yet, but AF301 in the southeastern eye wall, they have the dropson splashing down at 129 knots. At the higher levels, they did get some stronger winds. Nothing too special compared to some of the stuff we were seeing earlier today, right near the eye. So just remains to be seen whether they manage to drop in the eye and get a pressure reading for us. Another one, and see how that tallies with what NOAA 2 found. But it's not very often that we see two planes go straight through the storm at the same time. It must be the altitude difference that's causing that extrapolation mismatch. But if you've just joined us, NOAA 2 went through and got 909 millibars extrapolated. AF301 went through at a higher altitude and got 902.6 millibars extrapolated. But I suppose it doesn't matter very much when you've got the dropson down there getting 907 millibars at the surface with a 6-knot wind, which I think is stronger evidence to give it 906 or thereabouts. Very interesting. Is the storm starting to pull just that bit easterly, or is it an illusion? I'm always guarded here to see whether, because when you're watching closely, sometimes it looks like it's moving east, but it's actually an illusion. But in this instance, yes, it has moved fractionally eastwards again by about 2 miles or less over the course of 1 hour. So actually, yeah, that is a bit of an eastward jog. So keep watching. That could be a little sign, but I think there's going to be quite a few more twists and turns to come yet. However, back to the human perspective, really, it's still going to be very bad news for Jamaica, with what looks like it's going to be a very, very powerful landfall. Could still be a Category 5. We have the IPAS, 907 millibars from AF301 as well, with a 4-knot wind. So that pretty much seals it, to be honest, pressure-wise, that it is going to be around 906 millibars. Both of those planes corresponding to that in the end when the dropsons fell. So that's our most accurate piece of data. The dropson from both of those flights, both pretty much saying 906 millibars. So ignore that 902.6 extrapolated, as much as some people were excited by that. It's going to be around 906, which is still extremely impressive, and a sign that, well, the pressure is dropping again. So is this storm going to strengthen overnight? That's what we're going to be thinking right now.
I mean, it's on the cards. I think that there's a very firm possibility that, especially because this storm clearly is doing the exact opposite of what we thought it was doing.
As usual.
There's a significant chance. I mean, the conditions are there. The storm doesn't really have anything stopping it except for itself. Clearly, it's continued to intensify at a very steady rate. I think throughout the coverage that we've just had, I think it's very, while slow, a lot more persistent. I don't think that the storm is going to slow down anytime soon, especially since this was, realistically speaking, this was when the storm was going to slow down. We thought it peaked the storm was going to begin to make that northward turn, and with the stalling and other conditions around it, you would think that the storm would start to level off this peak. The models want it. I mean, I think realistically, that's what you would expect out of a storm of this magnitude, of this caliber, but instead it's continued to strengthen. And I mean, throughout today, especially during coverage, it's continued to improve on radar. It's especially those cloud tops, they've really held firm, they've held steady, and I'm really scratching my head, and I've said this I think 8 times, and every single time it's for a different reason now.
Well, with those Recon planes, the extrapolated readings, I think that must be due to their different altitudes. AF301 was at 3,000 meters, NOAA 2 was at 2,000 meters, so I think it's going to be something to do with that. But the drop sun data matched between the two planes, so that's, I think, pretty much settled it. I was going to do one more thing as well, and I've completely forgotten now. Well, I think I was just going to actually offer my thoughts on what we're going to be expecting over the course of the next few hours. We will be starting to see this slow northward movement, I think, and I think eventually it will have an increasing eastward element to it. Probably not at first. I think it's going to be straight due north for the first few hours, and then northeast. And then it looks like it's going to pivot then into the coast of Jamaica, and at the moment I would expect a landfall now probably to be somewhere near Belmont or possibly closer to White House. We're narrowing down hour by hour where we think this landfall location is going to be, but there is still a fair bit of wriggle room. It could still be anywhere, I would say, between maybe even Portland Point, but definitely Alligator Pond, westwards to the western tip of Jamaica. Montego Bay could still get the eye of the storm, and it still appears as though the storm will make landfall as a Category 5. As for intensity, I'm looking at satellite right now, and I still think that the storm is right near its peak, and it won't get much further. Maybe a couple more millibars. I am not sure if we're going to get much stronger with winds. And then we may start seeing a little bit of weakening, but still a Category 5 landfall for the western coast of Jamaica. I do say that with a little bit of trepidation, because some of the hurricane models, we know which ones, are calling for the storm to strengthen again shortly. The crazy models. But so far they've sort of been right, haven't they? We'll have to wait and see whether Melissa will give it one more push before it finally starts on its way with this weakening trend. Still a fair bit of time for it. It certainly could. My hunch is that it will stay pretty level here, but that could be wrong. Let's see if we've got any more questions here quickly. This storm is going to recurve. Is that a statement or a question? Whether the storm's going to recurve and U-turn, then it hits Cuba, causes electricity to go out. I don't know, man. It's from now on, it's going to be pretty straightforward. Movement is going to gradually increase, and it's going to keep going northeastwards and move more quickly over time. That's pretty much everything by the looks of things. So we're going to be throwing you to the automated stream shortly. I'd like to thank JJ for joining me and the others who were here earlier on. Thanks very much for being here. And we're now going to take a look at what happened on this day. It was another very powerful storm in 1999. It was an unnamed one, but still was worthy of Category 5 status. Cyclone 5B, which was approaching the coast of Odisha, known as the Odisha cyclone, was an extremely powerful and deadly storm for that part of India, and was very close to making its landfall on this day 26 years ago. Tropical Depression 15 had formed in the Atlantic as well. It would be named Katrina. And we all know what happened with that name. Someone just mentioned its name a minute ago in the chat. Well, back to today. The next name in the Atlantic is Nestor. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Tico. And in the Central Pacific, it's Lala. 89 storms so far in 2025, which brings us much closer now to the annual average of 92, which it looks like we're going to beat. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Kelmegi. And in the North Indian Ocean, it will be Senyar. We've got our automated stream running for the rest of the night and into tomorrow, and I expect we'll be having more full-on coverage as the storm approaches its landfall in Jamaica, which we still expect will be in the morning hours, but if it does continue to move slowly, it could be towards the afternoon. Australia, next name, Fina. Southwest Indian Ocean, Dudsai. South Pacific, Ermil. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Stay safe.